Hey everyone, Zach here with Zem Construction, bringing you another video. In this video, I'm going to show you everything we did to build this 14 by 16 foot deck. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so first we're going to take a look at the old deck that was in place before and go over some of the issues and why we decided to replace it. So first, as you can see, it looks like they tried to lengthen the deck and took some new joists and screwed them directly to the side of the old ones without fastening them properly to the ledger board. So you can see right there, they're starting to separate. And the reason that they're actually separating from the ledger board, along with not being attached properly, is the ledger board, as you can see right there, was actually just screwed to the side of the house on the outside of the siding. So any water that did hit the siding just dripped down behind that ledger board, and over time it actually caused it to rot. Also, the deck boards were put together with no spacing, so a ton of mold had built up and there was excess moisture. The supports, the 4x4s right there, were all cracked and weathering away as well. So this deck needed to come down desperately. So first we had to go through and demo everything. Although the deck wasn't in the best shape, the composite decking on top wasn't that bad, and I actually got permission from the homeowner to keep it and actually end up using that on a personal project later down the road. Keep an eye out for that video. So first we go through and we're taking off the railing. The railing that they had used was just a composite railing. It didn't have any rotting or anything like that, so we didn't know if we were going to reuse that or not, so we carefully took that apart. Once the railing was down, we're going through and taking out all of the 1/2-inch through bolts for all the actual posts, and then also starting removing the screws on the top of the decking. Once all the posts were out, we went through and both of us were up there with the drills in hand and unscrewing each and every little screw. After all the screws were out, we start handing down the decking. This isn't the quickest way to go about it, but because we were trying to save some of the materials, this is how we did it. Ended up working out just fine. So in this next clip, I'm just going to let it play out, but you will see how scary this deck was.
Yes! Okay, go hit this like what?
Yes, you're seeing that correctly. With just 2 well-placed hits with the sledgehammer and a couple shakes, the entire thing came tumbling to the ground. Besides the decking and the railing, we did not remove any other screws or fasteners at all, and it simply just fell away. One more good snow load, or if you had a decent sized party up there, that thing would have come crumbling down. So we're really glad we got to it when we did. So after everything was removed and out of the way, we started digging our holes for the concrete that the posts were going to stand on. We actually expanded the size of the deck by about 1 foot closer to that back fence that way, so we had to make some adjustments to where the existing posts were. Here we are doing some of the layout preparation using a string line just to make sure everything is straight and square. We ended up using a pour in place bracket. So we pour in the concrete, and while the concrete is still wet, we actually insert the bracket. We felt that that was going to be the best, most efficient way to go about it. So we didn't get it on camera, but that ledger board just fell off the siding. So this part we were a little bit nervous because we wanted to do it properly and attach the ledger board directly to the framing of the house. So we didn't know what we were going to find underneath this siding because the ledger board was so rotted. Fortunately, as you can see, there was no significant water damage. Everything was structurally sound. There were a couple spots where water had gotten through where the bolts were, so that's where you can see that discoloration. but structurally everything was great. So next we did our part to prevent any more further water damage. So we used a little bit of house wrap tucked up underneath the previous layer of house wrap that was already there. And next we installed a 2-inch drip edge. So this is a galvanized steel drip edge that goes tucked up underneath the siding. So any water that does come and hit the side of the roof, or that slider right there, when it drips down, it's actually going to drip on the drip edge and then drip over that main ledger board, so no water can get tucked away or caught behind there to cause any further issues. Here we're laying out the ledger board and the outside rim joists for the joist hangers. We find that it's easier to hang all the hangers while it's still on the ground, so we can check square for everything, make sure it's all done correctly, as opposed to doing it up in the air. I'm sure other people have different methods, but for us this works out really well. Going through and hanging up that ledger board. It's crazy the new technology they have with fasteners and things nowadays. You can actually buy screws and bolts that are replacing the 1/2-inch legs, and they're significantly stronger and a lot better. After the brackets had a chance to dry, here we are mounting the 6x6 posts for the main beam. We did our best to over-engineer this deck. Just the homeowner was a little bit nervous because of the old one, so any opportunity that we had to overbuild this deck and make it stronger and more solid, we wanted to do that. So once all the 6x6s were in place, we went through and started adding layouts for the notches that are going to hold the main beam that goes across. So one of us holding the square while the other one using the circular saw to make sure we had nice, straight, square, perfect cuts. And after those were cut, we went back with the Sawzall and cut those out. Of course, checking for level and square and straight as often as we possibly can, getting those cleaned up. The main beam is 2 treated 2x12s joined together, laminated together, so added a little bit of decorative touch by cutting the corners off. Each one of the post to beam connections is getting 2 1/2-inch through bolts bolted on each side to add as much strength and stability as we can. Here we are just screwing those all the way through and getting those bolts installed. I would highly recommend, if this is something you're going to take on yourself, to check your local codes. Where we are at is significantly easier than I've seen on other places where we can just look up the codes and there's actually a breakdown on every little thing. It goes over beams and lengths and spacing and all of that. So after the main beam was up with mounted to the posts, we're getting the outside rim joists prepared with the joist hangers. Fortunately, we had laid everything out previously, so we know that everything's going to line up and match up perfectly. We're getting the outside ones hung up first so we can check for square and get that all secure and fastened. We actually added a flashing on top of the beam because it was screwed together, 2 of them. That was a great spot for water to get stuck inside and cause future rotting, so we thought it'd be really important to make sure we added a flashing on top of that so water does just run off and not get trapped. So after the 2 outside rim joists were on, we were able to put on the 3rd joist, and after that it's all square. The inside joists go very, very quickly. Just getting those hung up and attached to the ledger board, to the outside joist, rim joist, as well as the main beam. So everything's attached and secured very well. We ended up using a coated screw everywhere we could, 2.5-inch screws, as well as 1.5-inch screws on the joist anchors. So once the main structure of the deck was built, the next step that wasn't in the previous deck was adding some stairs. So these stairs are going to come down on the side of the house and then have a landing and then turn 90 degrees and then come down towards the yard. So the first thing we did using more 6x6 posts was build the landing. So we used concrete anchors to anchor the posts into the existing concrete. Of course, getting that all laid out properly, square and straight, using a story pole to make sure everything is level. One of us was getting the anchors attached while the other one was notching out the posts, getting ready for the structure of that landing to be built. Now here we are building out the landing, and I am actually getting prepped to cut all of the stair stringers. So because it was a little bit different the way it worked in the 90-degree, and the concrete actually wasn't level, as you can see underneath, the patio actually slopes up a little bit, so it wasn't a perfect height that we could work off of. Also, we wanted to go with the existing height of the deck on where the slider was, so all of the stair stringers had to be custom cut. Not a big deal. Got those laid out. We hung it up there, as you can see, to make sure that the math and everything did work out correctly, which of course it did. Again, like I mentioned before, any opportunity we had to over design, we did, and that landing is ridiculously over engineered and strong. I told the homeowner, if there's ever an earthquake, you can just go hide under that thing. That will definitely keep you safe. We also built the deck out using 12-inch on center methods. All the joists anywhere are 12 inches away from one another, which Trex only requires a 16-inch gap, so we're over the top on that, which worked out fine. Also, the 6x6s were also a little bit overkill everywhere. Of course, we wanted to use those. I also liked just the look of it as well as the structural stability. I ended up actually using the posts that go at the top of the stairs for added strength to mount the stair stringers to. You'll see some more pictures in that a little bit later. Getting that bracket mounted on the bottom, going through, make sure everything is tested. Now I'm actually mounting all the stringers while my partner is going through and adding all the stability blocking. We ended up on the stairs using 5 stringers over a 4-foot span, so it ends up being about 9 inches on center. A little bit overkill, but again, like I mentioned before, any opportunity we had to add strength and stability, we decided to do that. I've found when going 12 inches on center with a 4-foot step, that actually leaves a gap in the very middle. So by adding that 5th stringer, you actually have a stringer running up through the middle of the deck where most people walk. And so over time, there's going to be a support, as you can see right there. So there is actually a stringer going up the middle as opposed to having a 1-foot gap. So there's going to be less flex, less bounce. The whole stair assembly will last longer over time. So after the top stairs were done, I'm going through getting the posts mounted. Again, using the posts for more structural support for the stringers. Getting the 5 stringers cut for the lower side. So after those were cut, got those mounted using 90-degree brackets as well as strapping to go all the way through underneath. As you can see, I notched out all of the stringers on the bottom so that I could insert one treated board to keep everything straight and aligned. We also used the concrete to post anchors for these posts right here, giving just another spot for the stairs to be mounted and anchored to the concrete. Here I am sliding in some of the posts, and I have a rule when I do posts that there needs to be a support on at least 2 sides of the post so that we can run a 6-inch through bolt or leg screw all the way through. That's going to go through the post as well as each side of those supports. This adds a ton more strength and stability. Again, doing some more math, getting all those posts done. I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but the homeowner is actually quite a tall guy, and so instead of the standard 3-foot railing, we actually ended up going with a 4-foot railing. It's a little bit taller than normal, but it's I think it ends up looking great. Here's most of the framing done. There's a couple more posts we wanted to add, but it's a great little sweeping shot of where we're at so far with the framing. So after all of the framing was done, we ended up starting with the fascia. So this design is going to have a white fascia where we actually just use a PVC fascia. Comes in several different widths. They actually have one that's designed for 2x8s to go on the outside, so we ended up using those for the stringers. I had to rip a couple of them down on the top side where the stairs got a little bit more narrow. And then of course they have the 2x10 fascia as well that goes around the rest of the deck. We ended up using a hidden fastener system, where I actually saw this system on a video with Kyle on RR Buildings channel. It's a great channel. I'll leave a link down in the description. You guys should definitely check out his channel. He does pole buildings, and he is a master of his craft. Very entertaining. Great, really recommended channel. But he does talk about some of these fasteners where he uses this PVC trim around his window casings, and shows a demonstration of that. And so when the homeowner decided that they wanted a white fascia, I knew that this was the system I was going to go with. So this was a fun little way that we did this. So one of us is up top screwing all the deck boards down, with I was actually at the bottom cutting those boards, as well as pre-drilling all of the stair steps. So the decking that goes on the stairs, I wanted to pre-drill them because they're all going to be screwed in. There's going to be lots of opportunities for perfect straight lines with all the screw holes. And so I thought, even though it does take significantly more time to go through and pre-drill those, it was worth it. So you can see me kind of running back and forth, making those cuts, as well as going and doing pre-drilling. We use the Trex decking. So Trex has been around a long time. I would consider them the leader in the decking industry, and the homeowner actually really liked their product as well, and ended up choosing a color that contrasted really nice with their house. So now that all of those steps were pre-drilled, I was able to go through and get those installed. There were a lot of holes because we had 5 stringers. Each board had 10 holes, so 2 per stringer on all 5 stringers, and then each stair of course had 2 deck boards. We did a little bit of a bigger overhang. We did an 1.5 inch overhang. We did this because the homeowner had discussed doing a light, like a stair light system down the road, and so we wanted to make sure there was a good amount of overhang so those weren't in the way or kicked in the future. So after those first sets of stairs were all wrapped up, then I started getting the landing prepared. You can see a little better shot of me pre-drilling, getting those all prepared for the stairs. And the last couple pieces of the decking were going in. We were discussing the best way to go about getting that last piece in. Of course, we did some math and made sure that the last board was not going to be some thin little board. It was actually a full board at the end, so it worked out great. So after all the stairs were done, again, we were kind of doing a little bit of double duty here. I was working on the fascia while also prepping and cutting railing. We used the Trex Enhance railing system with the white post, white rails, and then actually had the black bars within the railing, and it adds a great contrasting look. The homeowner does have black light fixtures throughout the exterior of the home, so the black really does work well together as far as colors. I think from this shot you can see a lot of the yellow tools, which I think depicts well which tool brand I prefer. I am a huge fan of DeWalt. I have almost everything they own. Even that Ryobi saw has been replaced with a Flexvolt DeWalt miter saw. So if you guys happen to be watching this, feel free to reach out. So here I am getting that mitered corner on the fascia installed. As much as you wouldn't want them to, unfortunately, treated wood does warp a little bit over time. So just in the amount of time that we had purchased it and then installed it, it did change a little bit. So we're being very strategic with the distance of the rails and those types of things to do everything we could to pull those posts back into straight and square and plumb. Ended up working out just fine. But again, it was kind of a, like you can see here, we did the outsides first and then end up coming back and do the middle because we used the middle to kind of suck some of those in towards one another. It worked out really well in that instance. It might be difficult to tell, but it's actually the homeowner who is helping me up top with the railing. Like I mentioned, he is a bit taller of a guy, and so we were kind of doing this railing a little bit differently than you would traditionally do it. So I wanted to make sure that he helped me with that so that we could make sure it was exactly the way he wanted it. Using the 4-foot post and then extending the rails as much as we could without the black bars falling out in between. Really cool shot here, the sun moving across as we're finishing up that railing. So now here I am doing the fascia for the steps themselves. So a little bit of trial and error, kind of going through, making sure everything fits properly. These fascia pieces are quite expensive. The 12-foot long pieces for the 2x10s, so they're, 2x10s, so they're 9 1/4 inches wide. Those ones are over $55, so each one of those is pretty expensive. So a miscut or two, I mean, you're up to $100 in mistakes pretty quickly. So I was careful to make sure and take my time and get those nice and straight and square and perfect. Went with a kind of a guardrail on the side of the stairs as opposed to notching each one out to match the stair stringers. I think it's a really nice, clean look. Now here I am installing the railing for the stairs. I find it's easier just to actually take the railing up to where it's going to go, mark it out that way so that it's perfect with the slope of the stairs, and using the actual posts in place for the measurement as opposed to trying to run a tape and making sure those lines are parallel. We were getting near the end of the project, and so oftentimes what happens when you're really trying to hurry and you got other projects going on and starting, you have to work some late nights. Not a big deal. So here I am on the final day, getting everything wrapped up, the last set of stair railings installed. As you can see, the homeowner had already gotten some patio furniture up there. They were very eager to get this deck done and used so they could get the summer going with it. It was just in time before the weather started getting really nice. See here, I use a ratchet strap to bring in one of the posts back to square before screwing it in. Ended up working great. Getting some of the garbage and stuff cleaned up, and then I need some final touches on the blocking. So this project turned out amazing. I'm going to show a little bit of a reveal here. As you can see, this deck turned out amazing. The homeowner had some great input on color design and choices just to fit well at their house, and I think it did a great job at that. They spared no expense. They wanted the nicest deck possible, and I was excited to give them that. I'm very happy how everything turned out, and excited to build more decks like this in the future. Hey everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you like these types of videos, I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. I post videos like this as well as other remodels like kitchens, bathrooms, basements, things like that as often as I can. They do take a while because the projects are a little in-depth, editing, narrating, those types of things. So if you hit that notification bell when I do post, you will be notified. I just want to take a quick second and thank each and every one of you for sticking with me up to this point and coming along on this journey. I never thought that this channel would ever grow at all, especially to the point where it has, and it's still growing. If you guys have any comments or questions or concerns or things you want to know more about, please leave them in the comment section down below. I really want to try it best I can to make this channel about you guys. I'm going to do everything I can to up the production quality a little bit, get some nicer cameras, play with angles a little bit, editing, different things like that. So any feedback you guys have is great. I do hear you. I see all your comments. You guys are asking about pricing. I'm sure, as you well know, pricing, there's tons of variables that go into that, but I want to figure out a system or something that I can do to make it beneficial for everyone, whether you're a contractor who's looking to change your pricing structure a little bit, or maybe make it a little bit more refined, or maybe you're a homeowner who's looking for a contractor, so then you understand what you're getting into and as far as pricing. Or also maybe you're a homeowner DIY type and you're going to figure out how much money you're going to save. Any one of those, I'm going to figure out a system that's beneficial to everyone so that I can go through and teach you what I've learned being in the industry as long as I have about pricing and those types of things. So again, I just want to thank you guys all so much for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.